Welcome to Family Center Focus. I'm Deb Cleworth, Community Outreach and Fund Development Manager at the Family Center, and your host for today's program. Family Center Focus is a once-a-month program available on Wisconsin Rapids Community Media. We'll introduce you to Family Center staff and programs and let you know what we're doing within and for the community. Many of you know about the Family Center, but for those who don't, let me share a little bit of information. The Family Center was founded in 1984 in the former convent at St. Lawrence Catholic Church. The need for more room and services eventually resulted in a building of a new facility. Now, the facility at 500 25th Street North includes a 24-hour safe and secure shelter for victims of domestic violence and sexual assault. The Family Center provides these services at no charge to victims and does not discriminate. For almost a year, the Family Center has been under the leadership of our first guest, Sue Sipple. Sue has a long history of dedication to victims of abuse. Before returning to Central Wisconsin, Sue spent 11 years as director of the Manitowoc County Domestic Violence Center, where she spearheaded a $2 million campaign to build a new shelter in the city. Welcome, Sue.
Hi.
Can you share a little bit about your background and what brought you into this field?
Well, as you mentioned, I've been doing this work for about 20 years.
The Crisis Center in Stevens Point as their shelter manager, and over time worked up to assistant director for intervention services and oversaw all of the domestic violence, sexual assault programming. I kind of had the yen in about 2002, 2003 to be the executive director of my own nonprofit. And so the opportunity presented itself to move to Manitowoc, a city that I had never been to, and take over the executive directorship there. I enjoyed my time there, but came after 11 years to feel like I had pretty much accomplished everything I wanted to accomplish. And so I wanted to move back to Central Wisconsin. That's what feels most like home to me. And so when this opportunity presented itself, I jumped at the chance to be the director here. Most of my time in the domestic violence field has been in that leadership role, but I did, when I worked for the Family Crisis Center, after I left as the assistant director, I stayed on as a crisis counselor and worked nights and weekends, answering the crisis line and working directly with victims. So a very humbling experience. Some things that I think I've been impressed with since I came here is the support of the community. The players that interact with domestic violence victims, like law enforcement, the courts, all seem to be up to speed and quite sensitive to victims' needs. That's a real plus. The Family Center also enjoys a lot of community support in ways such as volunteers and donations, and that really is a very much needed component of what we do. Things that I think have changed since I came, I think the staff feels much more confident and stabilized. That 20 years of knowing what works and what doesn't work and seeing other programs has really been helpful at helping people see alternative ways, alternative approaches, and feel more confident in their jobs. I'm really proud of that. We've added staff. Some of that is due to different funding that's been available to us, and so I think we are plugging in and adding services that will help us do an even better job at meeting victims' needs. So that's a real plus. I think the board work, that's a lot of what I do. When I came, the board was quite small. We've added a number of board members, and so have talent at that level to help steer the ship and keep me in line. So that's a piece that's working very well. So still things to do, but I think we've come a long way in the last year.
Cool. You spoke a little bit about the services. Obviously, the shelter is a big component, and a lot of people might think that's all the Family Center does. Can you share with the viewers some of the vast variety of services that are offered at the center?
Well, shelter is often what people think of when they think of the Family Center, of a domestic violence program. It is the most intensive service we provide, and also the most expensive service, because it's got to be staffed 24 hours a day, and security, and all of that kind of stuff. But only a small fraction of clients that we serve on an annual basis actually stay in the shelter. Many take advantage of similar or the same services that shelter clients receive on an outreach basis. People can walk in, they don't need an appointment. Sometimes it's helpful to have an appointment, but not necessary. They can call on the 24-hour crisis line and talk to somebody about what's going on in their relationship. Family members, friends can call about people they're concerned about. Those services that they might come looking for when they ring the bell or come to the door might be things like help with the courts and legal advocacy, help in getting a restraining order, help in negotiating the criminal justice process as their abuser is being prosecuted in the system. It might just be talking about what's going on and ways to stay safe while they stay in the relationship. We have specialized services for children. We have specialized services for older and disabled folks. Sometimes their barriers or needs or fears or concerns are a little different. We have specialized services for Hmong victims. That's a whole different thing in the Hmong community. We offer the visitation center, and I know Diana's going to be talking about that in a few minutes, but this provides a place for parents to exchange or visit their children in a more controlled atmosphere. So that pretty much sums up the bulk of our outreach services, and like I said, we see vastly more people through those services than we do actually in the shelter. So.
Thanks for sharing some of those services that are offered to victims of domestic violence. What about, are there services for prevention and that kind of thing that you can offer?
Yes. We spend a lot of time intervening. That is a big focus of what we do, helping people who are in the middle and the thick of things. But if we really want to end domestic violence, we have to get a little further upstream and work on preventing it from ever happening. A good example of that is with our sexual assault services. We do offer services for people who have been sexually assaulted, accompanying them to the exam, as well as providing individual counseling to them and helping them negotiate the criminal justice system as well. But we also go into the schools and focus on, with the youth, educating them about what a healthy relationship is supposed to look like. And so they are respectful of each other, and it is an equal relationship. That healthy relationship focus or talk will prevent not only domestic violence but sexual assault. And so that is something that we are trying to ramp up and do more of, reach kids of all ages, reach college students as well. Sometimes it's that sometimes domestic violence or the way people are in relationships comes from what they witnessed as children growing up in an abusive home. But sometimes it's that first relationship they have as a teenager. Depending on how that goes, that becomes their standard for what a relationship should be. And so we need to be in there and helping kids, helping the youth understand what a healthy relationship looks like. Sure. So we do a lot of that and hopefully can do more.
Cool. Talk about all these services that the Family Center can offer to people within the community. Some might wonder, okay, if I go to the Family Center and I'm in this situation, who's going to know? Are they going to tell other people? Is this going to cost me any money? I don't have any money to get these services. Can you talk a little bit about how these services are provided and those privacy issues?
Well, there are federal and state laws that are quite strong that dictate confidentiality for domestic violence and sexual assault programs. Some say they are more stringent and absolute than the HIPAA laws, and we're all familiar with how that goes when you go to the doctor and what gets shared. So confidentiality is really a cornerstone of the way we provide services. Any kind of information that you share with us, or even that you came to us, can only be shared if you sign a very specific release to share that piece of information. Those releases are also very short term, so it's not like years from now we can share information. So confidentiality is something people can feel quite confident about and assured that no one will know that you've been there unless you want them to.
And if someone calls the shelter asking if a certain person is there, they are that information is not given out.
Without that person's permission, we can't disclose who's there or who's not there. I mean, that's another piece of it. In terms of cost, everything we provide is free of charge, because we're fortunate to have funders, particularly government funders, who recognize that costs can be a barrier for people to access services. So there's no charge for anything we provide.
So you brought up a little bit about the government end of it. How important is the community support of the Family Center, not only with the facility being there to support victims, but also in terms of funding?
Well, this year our budget is about $725,000. That's a lot of money, but again, a lot of that is tied to a 24-hour staffing operation and the facility. So, of that $725,000, about 65% comes from government funding, state and federal. Every county in Wisconsin has a designated domestic violence program. Not every county has a sexual assault program. There are some unserved counties in Wisconsin, but every county has a domestic violence program. Not every county has a shelter. And so we're fortunate that there is a shelter in Wisconsin Rapids. Some of our surrounding counties, Adams County, Clark County, don't have shelters. And so part of the whole shelter design in Wisconsin was that shelters would be regional, and the expectation is that we will house people from wherever they come from. In some cases, it's those surrounding counties, most likely, but sometimes victims just want to disappear, or they want to move where their family lives for a support system. And so we have to be open to sheltering others. In our case, still about 85% come from Wood County. So about 65% government funding, about 10% United Way funding. United Way funds our shelter services. So when folks contribute to the United Way, they're helping us, and that's much appreciated and necessary. The remaining 25% comes from donations, little tiny grants, fundraising activities, and is that community component. Most of the government grants require what they call a match of 20 to 25% from another source, because they don't want to be the only players. They want to see that the community is supporting the agency. So not only do those community contributions provide necessary funds for what we do, but it helps us leverage and be able to get funds from those government sources. So.
All right. Well, as Sue mentioned, one of the services available at the center is visitation. Our next guest is Diana, one of the Family Center's visitation coordinators. Diana has been with the Family Center for almost 3 years. Welcome, Diana.
Welcome, thank you.
Can you talk a little bit about the history of the visitation program at the Family Center?
Well, the visitation program started approximately about 1986. We were recognized as one of the first visitation programs at a dual agency, domestic violence, sexual assault agency in the state of Wisconsin. We have several other agencies that have modeled their programs after our program, so it's a very welcomed and necessary piece in the community.
Very good. Can you share a little bit about the different services that are available through visitation?
In the visitation program, we offer supervised visitation, and we also offer safe exchanges. The two programs are slightly different in that the visitation program, for supervised visitation, we have a visiting parent come into our facility where they are visiting their child, and the exchanges include safe exchanges when we're taking the child from one parent to another child in a more controlled atmosphere, so that the children are not exposed to continued domestic violence, such as in a gas station parking lot, in a public area. There's no contact with those parents.
And before the program was initiated at the Family Center. That's how a lot of the exchanges were done, right? Just in random locations,
Correct.
in public, and open to
Yeah,
whatever.
correct.
So,
Exchanges were even taking place at schools, at your local restaurants, fast food restaurants like McDonald's, and then those children are continually exposed to those types of domestic violence. Correct.
Right. And so the way it's done at the shelter is each parent goes through a separate entrance, and they don't even see each other, and the children are free from that.
Correct. They have their separate waiting rooms. They have their separate parking lots. They enter those waiting rooms, and we take one child from one waiting room to the next waiting room, and then the parents leave the property. So it's very, very smooth. The children know what to expect when they're coming to the facility, and there isn't that anxiety that what's going to happen next.
Right.
So.
Right. Talk a little bit about what happens during a supervised visit, and explain a little bit about the visitation center at the Family Center and how it's kind of set up and operates.
A typical supervised visitation, it happens in our visiting facility where they have a fully functioning kitchen. So a parent that is visiting their children or child, they can make meals, they can bake. There's also an outside play area. We have a jungle gym, slide.
Which is all secured
All
area.
secured, yeah. And the parent comes in, visits with the child. We encourage the parent to bring activities that are age appropriate so that it's a great time for the parent and the child to bond. Some of those visits possibly are just a reunification where the parent has been absent from the child's life for a certain period of time, and the parent is coming to be reunified with their child. It might be because there is that aspect of the domestic violence where there's a restraining order, there's a protective order where the parent needs to be supervised. Visitation staff sits in on those visits. We do document factual information. Our opinions are not included in that documenting, such as if a child is happy, we need to explain what that means. We can't just say the child is happy. Okay. That's a typical visit.
Okay. How do parents get involved in this area of services for the Family Center? Is it something that they can just call up and say, hey, I heard about this program, I want to get involved, or how does that happen?
That's a very good question. First of all, our services are free, like what Sue had stated. We have several ways that parents can get involved in the program. One may be that the parents recognize that they can't co-parent together and that those dynamics are unhealthy for the children. Therefore, they contact our program. We can set them up. We can negotiate their schedule. However, then we have probably 80% of our clientele is through the court systems, whether it's a restraining order, whether it's a bond condition, and or it's like a CPS where Child Protective Services has ordered that the parents come to the program. Maybe it's a temporary order, or maybe it's a long-term order. We've had clients that have utilized our program for up to 12 to 14 years. And then we have clients that are there for maybe up to 4 months. So it's several different ways that parents get involved.
All right. Anything else you'd like to share about that program? Can you think of it?
I think it's a really resourceful program to have in our community. I think getting the word out so that parents in the community that are experiencing domestic violence and or sexual assault, knowing that resource is available to them, and that it's a non-biased, third-party, neutral atmosphere where we represent both parents in the best interest of the children.
And it's all about the kids in that situation.
Correct.
That's great. Thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome.
Back to Sue. If you're looking ahead a few years, like we said, you're wrapping up your first year here. What do you see in the future for the Family Center and its role in the Wisconsin Rapids community? As much as we'd like this to not have to be here, I think in a lot of ways, domestic violence is an ongoing issue. And so what do you see for the Family Center in that aspect?
Yeah, a couple things I hope to see when I look into the future would be really engaging the community even more, right? I talked about how supported we are, but there's still people that don't know what we do, don't know about our services, and haven't been engaged. I personally love to go out and make presentations to groups. I'd love to do more of that and sort of tell the story about domestic violence, what it's going to take to end domestic violence, and help bring people on board to support us in whatever way they feel most comfortable, whether it's bringing over a bag of groceries or just thinking about us when they have a friend who might need us. So more engagement with the community. We need to be out there more. This is an agency that the community created, and it's really going to take a village. It's going to take everybody in the community to end domestic violence. So we need to do more of that. Prevention, I talked a little bit about that. I see that there's going to be a greater focus on prevention. We're trying to ramp up and do more of that. Over the years, when domestic violence programs first started, it was kind of an equal mix of intervention and prevention, but as the costs of shelter and intervention rose, prevention started to take a back seat, and now funders are starting to recognize that that's important. So a bigger focus on prevention. I think that for me personally, I've been doing this long enough that accountability is really important. I want to make sure that we are doing at the Family Center, the best. We're looking to evidence-based things. We're on the cutting edge. We're in the loop on, new ways of doing things. And so that that accountability to the community, I think, is important too. While we're looking for their support, I think we also have to be delivering the best services that we can. And I don't mean at all that the services aren't good now. It's just, we need to stay on that top of that wave so that we remain victim friendly. We keep our focus on what's right for victims and, are open to new ways of doing things. So it's important to me.
Great goals, great goals. Well, that about wraps it up for our first program. I'd like to thank Sue and Diana and Wisconsin Rapids Community Media and our viewers. We hope you learned a little bit more about the Family Center in Wisconsin Rapids. Remember, if you or someone you know needs support, call the Family Center at 715-421-1511. That's 715-421-1511. The line is answered 24 hours a day. You can go to our website at www.familyctr.org for more information. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter. Thanks for watching. See you next month.